Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. So, as you can see sitting right here in front of you, we've got some new minifigures to look at. And I am really excited about these minifigures because recently I reviewed the mini Tyrannosaurus Rex with the VR app from Collecta, and I was really interested. I thought the actual Tyrannosaurus Rex looked really nice for being a minifigure. So now I have acquired all of these minifigure tubes from Collecta, including the new Prehistoric Mammals one that's just coming out for 2019, so that review will be up very soon. And I want to start taking a look at them all here with you guys to see if all of the other minifigures look as nice as that Rex did. This one is a nice little set full of all sorts of prehistoric creatures. I can't say it's all dinosaurs because I can see a Pterosaur in there, and I believe a marine reptile there kind of sticking his butt out on the right side of the Collecta logo. So let's go ahead, we'll pop this sucker open and take a look at what species we've got. So as we bring them in, we've got a Torosaurus. We've got the SPINOSAURUS, which is very cool. An ANKYLOSAURUS, right there. A LIOPLEURODON, right there. A very cool looking QUETZALCOATLUS. A GIGANOTOSAURUS, which is awesome. An AMARGASAURUS, which is one of my favorite sauropods. BRACHIOSAURUS. A very cool looking APATOSAURUS, which I would love to see a larger scale model of, that particular version, and then a VELOCIRAPTOR. So we've got a nice little set full of minifigures, 10 all together, and then we are given this little insert here. And on the front we've got a whole bunch of images of all the minifigures that I guess they had out at the time of this particular set, and then on the back the typical Collecta information. It does say collect them all, and we've got quite a few here in front of us, so we've already got a good jump start on the collection. Let's go ahead, take a closer look at these guys and see how nicely detailed they are. So we'll bring up the Spinosaurus first, and I will say that it looks really quite nice. The paint is very similar to the larger scale version, but not quite exactly. It's a slightly different shade. More of a lighter shade of color as opposed to the more yellow that the larger scale version was, but you can see that there is some green here kind of on the tip of the snout, and you also might be able to take notice there that the tongue and teeth are actually painted, which is really cool on such a small figure. That's quite impressive to me. The eye is painted pretty nicely there, both sides as well. There's actually green on the lower jaw as well, which I didn't take notice to a minute ago. And then as you run down, you can see that there is some areas of the green kind of hinting through on the legs and the back, the neck area. So there is some nice paint variation. The actual sail up here has just a few spots all over it, kind of a speckled type of a sail, but it looks really quite nice. And if you get really close, you can get a good idea of how beautiful the actual sculpting and detail work is on the Spinosaurus. It is really impressive for being such a small figure. It is really insanely highly detailed. Very impressive stuff. The overall sculpting of this minifigure, I believe it's just a scaled down version of the larger one, which that would mean that you would know there is a lot of sculpt and detail, but honestly it is just super impressive to see this in such a small form and be as highly detailed as it is. So the Spinosaurus looks really good, and definitely going to be a hard one to beat out as far as this set goes. Very impressive looking Spino. Now here's the Velociraptor. I think the Velociraptor looks a little strange just because his eye is kind of sloppily painted. If it would focus, there we go. You can see it's a little bit sloppy, but it still has a very cool look. It's got a great feathered appearance. Nice tongue sticking out there that is painted. The teeth appear like maybe they're painted, but I can't really tell too well. It's a little tough to tell. The eyes look a little better on this side, but it's such a huge black eye that it might be a little bit too big, I think. However, it's still not bad. As you come down, you can see beautiful feathering going on all over the place. That looks really nice. The nails don't really appear to have any paint on them. As far as the body goes, there is some paint variation. You can see down here on the feet, it kind of has like a darker color. If I can get it there, you can kind of see it on the inside of the feet, but not so much on the outside. It's just very subtle, the darker color that's been included on the feet. However, there isn't really too much otherwise as far as paint. You can see some very light darker coloration put into the body here just to give it a few different tones of color, and back here on the tail feathers as well. But there isn't really much other than that included, which I think is a little upsetting. I feel like this could have been very, very nice looking had it included a little bit flashier of a paint scheme. However, it is really nice as far as the sculpt, and the detail looks incredible on this. It's just that the paint itself isn't really that great. Here is the GIGANOTOSAURUS, and I think that they've pretty much just taken the Carcharodontosaurus that they had previously released and kind of given it the name of GIGANOTOSAURUS. It doesn't really look like even the head has been resculpted. It's just that they've taken that dinosaur and scaled it down and now renamed it a GIGANOTOSAURUS, but it still looks pretty nice. The sculpt and original detail on the Carcharodontosaurus was really beautiful, so you know you're going to get nice detailing and sculpt as far as that goes. On this guy, there is definitely some sloppiness up here on the lower jaw of the paint. Somehow the pink paint from inside the mouth has run all the way down onto the jaw, the lower jaw, and only on one side. So that's a little depressing. The eye looks pretty nice though, on both sides. It looks pretty nicely painted. The primary body color is a green, and you can see there are some tones of coloration put in, and it's got some kind of black striping that runs the course of the body. The paint from the actual foot here is run down onto the base a little bit as well. The base looks really cool though. Definitely a very nice different look for a Collecta base. It's a little hard to see it. It's kind of like a rocky type of an area. It looks really cool. The underside has a yellowish paint as well. So there's some decent paint variation on this one, and a little bit of sloppiness at the same time, but it's still pretty cool looking as far as a GIGANOTOSAURUS figure goes. Then we've got the nice looking QUETZALCOATLUS with its very dark looking face and beak. It's got a nice blackish color. The eye actually has a beautiful gloss you can see as I turn it there. The eye is painted pretty nicely. The inside of the mouth has a nice pink, very realistic pinkish coloration. Beautiful yellowish crest. There is a good bit of paint application actually applied on this one. And then you've got some nice yellow down here on the underside with a lot of what I would say are probably pycnofibers all over this. And then you've got the nice bluish coloration here on the back of the neck. And you move down the body, it turns to a brown and then gray on the wings. So this one definitely has a lot of paint application to it. And the sculpt and detail once again is really beautiful and very highly detailed, just like the actual larger scale version of this that they do have out, which I believe is a standard figure, but it's still a pretty nicely sized figure. And the smaller version here is really quite nice as well. Then you've got the TOROSAURUS, which I'm not really a huge fan of the Collecta Torosaurus they have out, although I actually don't own it, so I can't really say that. I have to get a hold of it to actually judge for myself, but I've never really seen too many good images of it. I really think that something about the head just kind of looks a little off to me, and that follows through here with this one. I think the head looks a little strange, maybe a little too elongated, but at the same time it's got some pretty decent paint application. The primary body color is like an orange, and it has this beautiful design up here on the frill of the dinosaur, and then the rim of the frill is like a brown with a light dry brushing that's been done over it, bringing out the incredible sculpt and detail that is included in this Collecta figure. And then you can see that the horns up here are a brownish color, and so is the horn here on the snout. And then you've got the beak area, which is also that same brown that you see up there. The eyes are a blackish color. They're a little bit sloppy, but not too bad. This eye looks a little better, I think, than the other one does. The overall sculpting and detail, though, as far as the very minute details, looks incredible on this Torosaurus. You can see it has very nice skin texture, beautiful scaling all over, and overall has a very nice appearance to it, just kind of walking along, very natural look. I'm just not a huge fan, I think, as far as the sculpting of the face and the way it is sculpted out. It's not that great to me, but still pretty nice looking. Here is the ANKYLOSAURUS, and this one actually has a very cool looking paint scheme as far as an ANKYLOSAURUS goes. Primarily the body is all this grayish color, although it's a light gray on the underside, and then as you turn it, it transitions to a darker gray up here on the top, but it has this kind of like a maroonish color here on the top of the head, and then as you run the entire length of the body, that maroonish color kind of stripes down the body and then gets to the club, and then just the sides here of the club have that maroon color, and I really think that gives it such a very striking and beautiful look. I am definitely a big fan of the way that looks. I think they've done a very cool job overall on the paint of this figure. Even though there's not that much to it, it still looks really nice what is included. And I think the overall sculpting of the Ankylosaurus looks really beautiful as well. They've also maroon colored the little horns on the side of the head there. And the eyes appear to be painted pretty nicely on this one. Doesn't seem like there's any paint inside the mouth, but overall I think this is definitely one of the more appealing as far as these Collecta minifigures go. Even the cloaca is included down there on the bottom. So this one is really quite impressive. Beautiful little Ankylosaurus. Then we've got the AMARGASAURUS, which looks pretty much identical to the much larger scale deluxe version that they have out. It is exactly the same paint scheme with that maroon color up here on the top, and then it kind of stripes all over the greenish body. The eyes look to be painted pretty darn nicely. Yeah, it won't focus, but yeah, they're pretty nicely painted. And the underside has that yellowish color. It's actually very similar as far as the color scheme to the GIGANOTOSAURUS that we had looked at earlier, as far as the green and then the yellow underbelly and everything. The sculpting of the AMARGASAURUS really looks beautiful. Definitely has a very nice appearance to it, and there is lots of very fine detailing. Really has a beautiful sense of the musculature there in the front leg, which I think is looking really nice. Beautiful appearance to the way it's walking as well. The tail is nicely curved here at the end. All sorts of osteoderms all over the body. So really, really nice looking AMARGASAURUS in minifigure form. I really quite like this guy. Then we've got the smallest of the bunch, and that would be the LIOPLEURODON, who my camera really doesn't want to focus on, but you can see he has some really beautiful sculpt, nicely sculpted teeth there. He's such a dark coloration on the head, it's almost hard to really pick out the detailing and sculpt that is included, but it's really nicely sculpted. You could definitely take my word for it, and the paint application looks fantastic. I love the use of the dark black and then the yellow and the whites. I think they all mesh together so well, and it all has kind of a glossy look, really giving it a genuine wet look, which is another huge plus as far as this figure goes. You can really, if it would focus on him, you can really see just how nice looking the overall sculpt and detail is of this very small LIOPLEURODON. This is definitely the smallest out of all of them, but really beautifully detailed, and probably my favorite paint job, and overall my favorite as far as the appearance goes, I think. Really nice looking as far as a small, tiny LIOPLEURODON goes. Then we've got the BRACHIOSAURUS, which I believe again is just a scaled down version of the Collecta BRACHIOSAURUS that they do have out. It has some very nice skin texture and really quite the good sculpt. It's just not the most up-to-date Brachiosaurus, I would say. This is a fairly old figure from Collecta, with the initial Brachiosaurus that they got this figure from, and I think that they definitely should update that one very soon because it is really quite outdated, but it still looks pretty nice. It definitely has a very Jurassic Park feel to it, even with the paint. Has that like grayish color that's similar to what we see on the Brachiosaurus in the films, and then the underbelly has a light gray. You can again see the cloaca because, again, Collecta is awesome at including every bit of realism they can in their figures, even in mini form. The eyes are painted pretty well. You can even take note to the teeth there on the inside of the mouth of the Brachiosaurus. So it's a pretty decent Brachiosaurus, but not my favorite of the group. That's definitely for sure. And then we've got the APATOSAURUS, and I really am intrigued to see this one. It's got a pretty nicely sculpted head. The eyes are painted pretty nicely. It's got some really nice skin texture, really beautiful as far as the sculpting of the scales and everything goes. Very small, minute details are really beautifully presented here in the sculpt. Nice osteoderms and stuff up here in the back, like some scoots going down the back here. Very nice ridges along the back as well, which I really like to see on APATOSAURUS because I just think that it gives it such a cool look. Nice skin folding in the stomach. The underbelly is like a brownish color, and then it's primarily a gray, and then it gets darker as you get up to the top. Very naturally transitions throughout as far as the coloration goes. Nice curved tail here at the end. I really am a big fan of this APATOSAURUS. I think they've done an incredible job on this little mini APATOSAURUS, and I would love to see a larger scale version of this at some point. So as far as a size goes, I'm not going to measure each and every one of them. I'm going to just run the tape measure here across the top to give you an idea of just how small they are. You can trust me when I tell you they are really quite small, even smaller than the Jurassic World minifigures, which are making these really true minifigures. For a size comparison, there is the Papo T-Rex, so now you should have a pretty good idea and sense of just how insanely tiny these minifigures are. Compared to the Papo Rex, they are absolutely dwarfed by him. And I really think that shows just how insanely nice they are, because they are really, really small. But as you saw when I got that up-close look, they are very highly detailed, so that is incredibly impressive as far as the sheer size of these figures and how much detail is cram-packed into them. So I would 100% be lying to you guys if I said that I wasn't very impressed by these figures, and just the insane amount of detail and sculpt that is included in them. One thing that I really love about these minifigures is the fact that in the tube you don't just get dinosaurs, you get quite the assortment of different species when it comes to different dinosaurs from all different periods of time, along with marine reptiles and pterosaurs and all sorts of things. You just get a good array of difference when it comes to the sheer amount of what is included. There's just so much stuff. With 10 different species, you've got 10 different animals all together. 8 are dinosaurs, 2 are not, and I think overall it is awesome the way they've chosen this to give you both marine reptiles, pterosaurs, and dinosaurs together. You don't have to purchase just a marine reptile tube or a dinosaur tube or anything like that. You just get a whole bunch of all different species from all different time periods all together. Super awesome choice on the part of Collecta. I really love that. The overall sculpting and detailing of the figures is really, really well done. They are very highly detailed for their size, quite impressively detailed, honestly, for their size. These are the type of figures that would be pretty fun to repaint if you chose to buy a whole bunch of these minis to repaint for yourself. You've got so many different dinosaurs that you can just use your mind to come up with very cool paint schemes on them, and because they are so insanely highly detailed, it would really show nicely through on these minifigures if they were repainted. But even with this original factory paint, I think they all look really nice. I think the only one that's really lacking as far as paint goes would probably be the VELOCIRAPTOR, as he just really doesn't have much going on at all. But even still, without much paint on him, he looks really good. So I think as far as the paint application goes, they've done a pretty good job considering the size. There is a good bit of paint included on these minifigures, much more than you see on most, if not any other company when it comes to minifigures. And the sculpts, again, look just as highly detailed pretty much as their larger counterparts. So that is another big time plus as far as these minifigures go. So if you do want to buy this set of minifigures, I will throw a link to these in the description for you to go ahead and purchase them for yourself, because they really are quite awesome. Definitely a recommendation from me, because they really are beautiful as far as minifigures go. So go ahead, follow the link in the description to where you can purchase these minifigures, and before you do that, please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.